now recognize Representative Tenney for 5 minutes for her opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Bishop and Ranking Member Ivey and members of the Oversight, Investigations, and Accountability Subcommittee for the opportunity to appear before you all today and testify on the crisis at our northern border. While a lot of attention, rightfully so, has been paid to our southern border, our northern border is also facing a crisis. The U.S.-Canada border is the longest international border between two countries in the world. And I may just address the ranking member for a moment, this manufactured crisis that he describes. Maybe we could discuss why President Biden recently went to Canada to visit with Prime Minister Trudeau to discuss the problems at the border. So apparently President Biden has recognized that this is an issue as well. Recent news reports, along with data compiled over the last 2 years, show a surge in illegal migrant crossings and drug trafficking across the northern border. Specifically, in the North Country sector of the border, which I partially represent, there has been nearly an 850% increase in border crossings, while the stats the ranking member shows do not count this past year. As the national security threat at our northern border continues to grow exponentially, there has been no corresponding increase in U.S. Border Patrol staffing. It's still at the same level as was fiscal year 2009. I'm honored to represent New York's 24th Congressional District, which runs along the northern border with Canada across Lake Ontario and the St. Lawrence River. This crisis is directly harming my constituents as drugs and illegal aliens are trafficked along the border. Under President Biden's failed leadership, our borders are less secure and our communities are at risk. It is critical now more than ever for members of Congress to come together with one voice to advocate against President Biden and Secretary of Homeland Security Mayorkas' reckless policies. It's time for the administration to finally focus on delivering the resources needed for our hardworking and courageous Border Patrol agents at the northern border to do their jobs effectively. Since President Biden has taken office, there has been nearly a 15-fold increase in northern land border encounters. There were 997 northern border land encounters in January 2021. Before President Biden took office, it's 15-fold since that date. But since then, we continue to see these crossings with no action on the part of the administration. In the month of October 2022, there were 15,938 northern land border encounters. In fiscal year 2020, there were 32,376 borders encounters. In fiscal year 2022, there were 109,535 encounters. Under the Biden administration, drug smuggling has increased by 596% along the northern border, including a 26% increase in fentanyl. Border Patrol staffing has remained flat, as I said, since 2009. Since fiscal year 2009, staffing levels along the northern border sectors have been between 1,887 and 2,263 personnel. FY 2020 northern border staffing was at 2,019, actually less. The longest international border in the world, measuring 5,525 miles, the U.S. northern border has only 115 ports of entry with no performance measures to assess security between ports. This shortcoming is especially impactful to my district, which shares a considerable border with Canada across Lake Ontario. Numerous traffickers utilize this large expanse of water to bypass more heavily guarded sections of the border, funneling drugs into our communities. Others use the heavy boat traffic on the St. Lawrence in the summer to overwhelm and evade the border security there. Just a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to meet with our Buffalo Border Patrol agents, and they discussed the many issues they're facing. However, by far the biggest challenge these public servants face is the lack of resources and assistance to effectively do their jobs. For example, under Secretary Mayorkas, each border sector must individually apply to receive permission to perform counter unmanned aerial systems operations. It took Secretary Mayorkas roughly 3 weeks to approve the Buffalo sector's ability to counter these CUAS operations. During this time, drug smugglers continued to use UAS to traffic fentanyl and other drugs across the border that directly harms our communities. Once again, I appreciate the opportunity to testify in front of the committee. I'm glad to see the northern border crisis finally getting the attention it needs, And may I ask the ranking member, we are happy to amend my bill to include the northern border, and I hope you'll join us in those efforts. And I do implore the committee to please join with our border agents at the northern border to really understand what's happening up there. It's really a crisis, and it's tragic on a human level as well. Thanks so much. I appreciate the ability to testify.